It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, May 14th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is answering the question, what makes a good center in the NHL?
What makes a good center in the NHL?
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we are going to be answering that question about what makes a great center. And speaking of which, we are doing our first summer poll of the off season for y'all out there to answer about who you'd pick of the centers out there with the sixth overall pick. It's over on our YouTube channel. There's a link to it in the show notes. Make sure you get your voice heard and send us a comment with why you picked who you did, or if you have somebody else, say that as well. We've got some great responses so far and keep them coming. And speaking of y'all, this is normally our mailbag week, and we're expanding it a little bit to the full episode because we got two excellent questions. One from Patrick. Asking somebody please enlighten me on what makes a center. I hear great praise about prospects. Then the final statement is he's not a center. And another listener named Amy sent us an email saying, what is the likelihood that Porter Martone falls to the Flyers? Could he be converted to a center? And if not, why not? So we thought those questions were very interrelated, and we were very excited to talk about that. So that being said, Russ, there are several types of centers that I would categorize in the NHL. So we have the playmaker scorer center.
hmm
You've got your two-way center.
hmm
You've got your penalty kill / defensive center.
hmm
And then you have this tiny category of face-off specialist centers. Is that would you agree with that
Yeah, I
assessment?
think so. Because I think the faceoff specialist guy most of the time ends up on the fourth line if he doesn't do the other things well, and
Right.
there's room for a guy like that. So yeah, I think that's 99% accurate.
Yeah, so I think that, just as a general rule here, these buckets has been what hockey has categorized centers in, and you need basically one of each in your current system in order to balance things out and have the right matchups and all of that. But you just wonder, this game changes over time,
It does.
right? So should it be this way, or should people be more skilled in all of the different elements and be able to be more mix and match? How do you see the game currently versus how it's developing based on your prospects
Right.
evaluations?
So I think, I think over the last 10 years, uh, most of the time, if you got a center, they always had to defend the middle of the ice. Nobody's taking a center that can't defend,
Right.
especially in the first round or even in the second round. So that has to be, unless they're just so good offensively that they get 100 points. They get 100 points, you'll overlook everything else, but that's rare. So
Right.
so so there is that, and then the more the more that I have been looking at it, like I said, every center has to play some defense, so they have to be a two-way guy. Just using those quotes, two-way guy. That doesn't mean they have to be the best. Like they don't have to be Patrice Bergeron,
Right.
but they used to only have to be playmakers. Now you have to be a scorer and a playmaker because it's gotten so much harder to score that just having playmakers isn't good enough anymore. So you don't just draft a center to be a playmaker anymore. And that's why I use guys like Dylan Larkin as an example because he does both. And you have to have that speed. You can be a center and be like a little bit not a speedster, but then it's harder to defend the middle of the ice. It's harder to do some of those other things. That's why Sean Couturier has trouble now post back injury because you do need a certain amount of speed to play that position.
Right. And I think that also, when you're looking at a center, you have to look at what kind of role that they have in two other aspects of the game. I would say in the breakout, because if they have that speed, they
Mhm.
can be part of the breakout and,
Yeah.
and the system driving that
As
breakout.
long as they're
If
not
they
slingshotting it back, because if they do that,
correct.
I hate it.
I hate the slingshot too. Every time the Flyers do it, I lose
Oh,
my
I
mind.
cringe. It's just
And
I have to control myself in the press
especially
box. I hate it.
yeah, and especially on the power play, which is the other aspect I was alluding to, is
Yes.
can they play a role on the power play, and what is it? Are they the net front guy, or are they got the guy on the half wall, right?
Well, I mean, the guy on the half wall, if they just have that good a shot, but it has to be like upper 5 percentile of the league kind of shot. If
Right.
not, then I think the bumper is actually a good spot for him because they always have good hands. These guys all know how to deflect. And so I think that's the next best spot. But again, like there's a guy we're going to talk about later, Anton Frondell. If you have a shot like him, you might put him on the half wall.
Right. Right. I see how that makes sense. But I think the breakout is a crucial part
Yes,
of
it is.
figuring out like how to use your centers effectively, because I think in some systems the defenseman would generally pass it out to a winger because the
Yeah.
winger would more likely have the speed to get it up ice. Then maybe you pass to the center, pass the red line a little bit, who then passes it back to a winger who takes the shot, or in
Well,
something
in
along
your
those
world, I still
lines.
want a defenseman out there because the defensemen play better defense than 99% of the forwards, especially on a bouncing puck. They're just used to it.
No, I'm saying just 5 on 5, like regular play.
Oh,
I'm not
regular.
sa
I thought we were on power play.
yeah.
Sorry. I know you mentioned power play. I got lost.
Yeah, I
My bad.
mean, it could be on the power play, but generally, I think at 5 on 5,
Yes.
that's like
Then yes, I
your
agree.
typical breakout, how
Yeah.
that progresses on most teams. Now, it varies depending on who the line is out there. To your
Yeah.
point, who the defensemen out there are and do they get involved offensively? Obviously, there's some variation here, but I
Yeah.
think that when you're looking to build your centers and who your 4 centers are on your NHL team, you need to have a variety of these different roles. And I think, the face-off specialist, to your point, is definitely a fourth liner in most cases. However, I think sometimes you can get a third line center that can
Mhm.
do that very well because they will oftentimes get matched up against a top line in those particular circumstances where you have like a face-off wizard on their top line, say like a Crosby,
Yeah.
right?
Crosby's the exception for sure.
Yeah.
Couturier used to be that guy. He's still good at faceoffs, but he used to be that guy. Like Elias Pettersson is an actual normal one where he used to be a great offensive player and takes faceoffs, and he's on the top line. He's not great at it. He's not terrible at it. He's okay. There's that type too.
Yeah, there is. And so I think in terms of then if these are the types and what they do, like what makes them great versus just like your standard center.
Okay. Vision. Vision is probably the most important because there are guys when they make passes that we're like, I didn't even see that. I didn't even see that opening. I didn't know that guy was going to go there. It's kind of like that old Wayne Gretzky thing where his dad did the work with him on the TV, and it's like, where's the puck going? Where's the guy going? These those guys know with that kind of vision. I always put stick and puck control and passing kind of together because I feel like if you have great stick and puck control, the next thing you're going to do is find that open guy. Most of the time, sometimes you'll shoot it, but as a center, I'd say most of the time you're still looking for that next play. And so, like, if you have great stick and puck control, and that means, your edge work, that means being able to shake a defender, that means just finding that little bit of space. So now I have the upper hand and where I'm passing it to get a scoring chance, because that's what you're trying to do. Every time you're in the offensive zone, you want to create scoring chances. So there's that. The great shot is always great, but usually I'd say most of the time, guys aren't breaking into the zone on their own, especially at center, and taking their own
Right.
shot. It happens. It happens late in games, late in periods, maybe in a tie game. Sometimes when things aren't working, things are breaking down. But most of the time, it's not going to work that way.
Yeah, and I would add to what you've said, which is all spot on. be an effective communicator on the
Yes.
ice, because I think the center has to drive the play and what strategy they're using. If you're doing a set play from a face off, they're the one that makes the decision in
Yes.
terms of
Yeah, they
where
should
the
be
puck
pointing
is
to the
going
guys
and
talking
why.
to him. I'm going to draw it
Mhm.
back to you. You pass to him. He's shooting. We only have 5 seconds here. Let's get this done. And yeah, and you're right. And that's an important thing. Something I also noticed on the face-off part of being a center, and because I was just reviewing video of a guy, is that leverage part. So, like, if you got the leverage right, then at least you have I think more than a 50% chance of winning the faceoff. But then you have to have the strength because a lot of guys know they're going to lose the faceoff and try and muscle it away from you.
Yeah.
Kevin Hayes
And
used to lose almost all of his faceoffs, but he would muscle the puck away a lot.
right, and there's a lot of that puck support involved
Yeah.
in post face off,
Yeah.
as well. That I think the center is responsible and has to be very good at puck support, and immediately following face-offs is the most often time that they have to do it. But also along the boards, if their winger is
Yep.
battling along the boards, they have to have that puck support as well. But we've alluded to some of the existing Flyers and some other players in terms of good ones of these different buckets that I mentioned. We're going to dig more into the current Flyers, past Flyers, and those potential draft picks and where they fit in terms of the good versus great. And in these buckets, we're going to do that coming up next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nut, and each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel full longer. And personally, I love the no shells variety because, again, I am lazy and I do not want to take the time to shell them myself. It makes it the perfect grab and go snack for my busy days. I have them at my desk while I'm working. And very recently, I reloaded on my sea salt and vinegar no shells from Wonderful Pistachios because they are my favorite. All of them are good, but this one is a little bit extra for me. It's so delicious and healthy too. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. These little green wonders pack a protein punch. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. On tomorrow's show, we are going to continue this discussion a little bit, digging more into some of the draft prospects at center. We are going to do a deep dive on Brady Martin, one of them, which was a listener request from Sean. So thanks for that suggestion, Sean. And if you've got a wish for a prospect you want us to cover on the show, let us know. You can email us or comment on YouTube or any of those ways you can get your draft prospect profiled on our show. We've talked about Sean Couturier a little bit already. I would call him a defensive forward with a little bit of scorer, playmaker, and faceoff specialist. I feel like this is almost like a horoscope
Mhm.
thing with like, what's your sun, your moon, and your
Yeah.
rising? It's like,
Yeah.
how do you fit into these different buckets a little bit? So that's how I would categorize Sean Couturier. For Noah Cates, I would say he's simply a two-way at this
Right.
point.
Yeah, he's a good two-way defenseman. He can occasionally make some plays. He's never going to hurt you. He's not going to lose the puck. He's going to grab the puck most of the time. He's going to win 50-50 battles. Um, and that's good. That's valuable.
Yeah, and I would say it's hard to say what our other centers are in
Yeah.
some ways, because like you have Ryan Paling, right? So he's a little bit of a scorer playmaker because he's got that speed, but like he's not a great center.
No.
So it's like, where does he fit in terms of the other aspects of centers, do you think?
Yeah, he's just got a little of each. He's got a little bit of playmaking. He's got a lot of
Yeah.
speed, so that covers up some ills. He plays okay defense, not the best, not the worst, and he's pretty good on faceoffs. There'll be games where he can ride really hot, and then other games where even if he's holding his own, he's going to be probably 45%. so he's never going to hurt you. But sometimes he can be your best face-off guy. So he's kind of like that. That's why he's a tweener. He's like not really a third
Yeah.
line center. He's more suited for a fourth line center job. But if you have a good fourth line center and you're lacking a little, he could play the role of a third liner. And and until you're playing a team that are really three centers deep, which is, not not every team has that, you get away with it.
Right. And I feel like even though he's not a Flyer anymore, this is where we bring Scott Laughton into the
Yeah.
conversation, because this is a guy, and kind of circling back to the Porter Martone question that we got, he's a guy that isn't a center that was made into a center by the Flyers and filled that role that, you know, maybe Jacob Peltier is trying to fit now because Lawton isn't there anymore. But I think that was kind of a shoehorn center situation, right?
Yes. And listen, he learned how to play the position. He was always pretty good defensively, but once he got on the penalty kill, I feel like his defense improved too. So you give John Tortorella credit for that, because he kind of sniffed that out in him rather. And so that was good. The only thing about Scott Laughton playing center, it definitely sapped his offense, because his best year, I think, was when he was on the wing, and he definitely was scoring more on the wing. Once you have those other responsibilities, you got to cover the center of the middle of the ice and all that. If you're not the highest caliber offensive player, which he's not, it could sap it. And it definitely did.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, in a lot of ways now, Sean Couturier aside, I would call a great center. He's not elite, but I would call
Well,
him
there
a
was a
great.
time where he was going to possibly get
Yes.
there, and then injury
The
happened. So yeah,
Exactly, exactly. But we have to dig into the Flyers past a little bit to look at, elite centers.
right,
And you could go back to Bobby Clark, but whole other era. So I'm not sure
right.
it's worth
And he
like going
cheated on
that far. But
faceoffs the same as Messier, so it's fine.
totally,
That
totally.
that
But
was that era did a lot.
yeah, I would say Eric Lindros is
Yes.
obviously kind of the scorer playmaker center,
Yeah,
right?
listen, I mean, he teams would still kill for an Eric Lindros type. Like that's the type everybody wants first, because you have
Yeah.
every aspect covered, but they're very rare.
Yeah, and even if like you might suggest that he isn't as strong defensively or wasn't as strong defensively, his size made up for that,
It did. Like, who
I
was going
think.
to beat him in the corner for the puck? Like, otherwise you're
Nobody.
getting shellacked by him.
Right. Right. And then I think obviously we know he's a winger now, but Claude Giroux, a lot of years as a center, he was a scorer playmaker with the faceoff specialist quality,
No
right?
question. I mean, last year he was the best faceoff guy in the league this past season. I think there was eliteness in him. He wasn't elite, but he was pretty damn close. The reason that he could turn it up more than most is his hockey IQ was higher than most everybody else on the ice at any given time. So that made up for anything lacking. Sean Couturier is the same thing. Even though he's slower now, his hockey IQ is higher than most guys that are on the ice.
Right. And I wouldn't say that we have a purely defensive center in the recent Flyers history that fits that exactly. So I'm going to say Nico Hischier from the Devils is the guy we want to talk
He's
about
broken
on
out
that
of that
front.
now, though. Now he's
A
everything.
little bit,
He
but
started
that's
out
like
that way.
that was his bread and butter to
It
start off with.
was, but the thing was, it was in the NHL. It wasn't in juniors. And juniors, he had that offense, but then when he came in, he started with that, and then when that part was mastered, which it was, and then his offense really broke out, and especially this playoffs without Jack Hughes, he really was a force.
Yeah, and you wanted to bring up Pierre-Luc Dubois as
Yes,
kind of a creating a center
creating a
example
center
as
thing.
well.
Yeah, so like I had said before, I thought a guy like Lyndon Lakovic, uh, I might draft him higher than some other teams because he's 6'4", and I might be able to make him a center, and his strength is only going to get better. And wow, if you have a 6'4" center that could really be that strong, he's going to win more faceoffs than what he's doing now, because he's just on the wing and he's taking them occasionally. Guy played center in his background, so there's that. And so it doesn't happen very often, though. Like we talked about Cutter Goche,
Right.
it didn't happen. He's not playing center. He did. He tried it. It didn't work out.
Didn't work.
And it's not.
Right.
And most of the time, it's not going to work out for reasons we said in the last segment. So now when people ask us why we're saying we don't think he's a center, now you know why. But it's hard. Like that, it's the second hardest position in the NHL. I'm not
So
counting goalie because goalie's its own thing. I'm just saying number one defenseman, then center. Like those are the hard positions.
so circling back to the Porter Martone
Yeah.
question, can he be converted to a center, do you think?
I don't know because right now he has a lot of turnovers in his game. He definitely would have to curb that. There's some thinking that he will. I don't view him as a center personally. I'm not going to say it's impossible. What I will say that is impossible is for him to fall to 6. That is an impossibility. It's not going to happen. There's very few things where you could talk about indefinites, especially in this draft. But the more people I talk to, and this is not just people who scout or people who prognosticate. This is people who talks to people at teams too. He's not getting past 5. He's just not. And it's possible he could go 2, like it is.
Right.
Because he is that guy. He is that preeminent power forward in this draft that has all the tools, and teams will always salivate over that. And, like a Svechnikov, you know, people, Andre, not Evgeny. Just want to point that out to anybody who's going to be a wise guy. But yeah, I mean, that's always something you salivate at.
Right. And I think, looking at a guy like Anton Frondell,
Yeah.
what appealed to him about his game for me is that to me he was a potential Sean Couturier replacement down the
Hmm.
line, right? In terms of the more complete game
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, he has a chance to be a very good top 6 center. One of the best shots, one timer and wrist shot. They're both tremendous in this draft. Plays a good two-way game, has been playing against men. All those things tracked. At the beginning of the season, people were like, I don't know about his injuries. I don't know about this. But he finished the season strong against men. He parachuted into the U18s. He wasn't going to score a lot of points on that team the way they were kind of putting him in the lineup, and the fact that he was at literally just going from from European hockey to sort of European hockey, right? Because
Yeah.
it changes for the World Championship for the U18s, and so I thought he showed all those other aspects that are really good: his physicality, his face-offs, his just overall game, his being able to accelerate and get to the net. Even if he didn't score, he was able to make plays. So he impressed, and I think he impressed enough that he may not be there either, but if he is,
Right.
you wouldn't even hesitate in taking him, but there's a chance he's not gonna be there.
Right, which I think is the same situation for Caleb Desnoyers, right?
Yeah.
Because he has the complete game and he has that transition game
Yes.
that I talked about earlier in terms of getting the play up the ice that I think the Flyers desperately need.
Yeah,
So
they do
that's
need
what
that.
appeals to me about him.
Yeah, he is very appealing, plus he has some size and he'll get stronger, and he probably gets away with trying to do a little too much in the league he's in the queue because it's such a high point league. He'll probably have to pare it back a little bit. We'll have some information on tomorrow's show about Frondell versus Denoyer from another scout's point of view, from somebody who's really good at it. I'm not saying I'm not good, but I don't call myself a scout. I just don't. So, and that will be interesting for people to hear, I think, because that's a really good possibility that could happen, and it's a good possibility. Like we've said all along. I know sometimes the message gets lost because sometimes we're saying, hey, this isn't the deepest draft, but we're saying the possibility at 6 is very good. And the possibility of getting a good center is almost definite. The only way they don't get one of these top guys is if all of a sudden every single center goes off the board, these top ones, and then you still are getting like a guy like Jake O'Brien, who's a little bit stepped down from these other guys, but you're still getting that. So you're going to get a center if you want it. It just depends how the other dominoes fall.
Well, you have a lot of other questions that you
Mhm.
sent us this week, including potential trade options, signing options, talking about goaltending. We are going to get to all of them coming up next. Brendan asks us, do the Flyers have any hope of getting Isaac Howard? He looks like an interesting ad that would raise the bar for the third line considerably. And right now, Isaac Howard is unsigned. He was a 2022 draft pick of Tampa Bay, who plays at Michigan State.
Mhm.
And I guess the first question you have to ask is he gonna ride it out and go the free agent route?
Yes. He is definitely going to do that. The only thing that changes it is if we all know there's always a team these guys want to go to. We can never figure out fully. Even I couldn't figure out fully that Adam Fox was definitely going to the Rangers, even though he
Right.
was a Long Island kid. Because even people were telling me there's a chance that he'll still sign in Carolina, which it was at the time when they got him from Calgary. So you never fully know. But there probably is a team that if they traded for the rights for Isaac Howard, he would come out early and sign for. But otherwise, he's going to go free agent, and he'll be the top guy when he does that. Is there a chance the Flyers can get him? Sure. Playing time is a big thing. That's number one, and then it's going to be okay. When could I get in the lineup? How quick is that going to be? What kind of
Yeah.
assurances are you going to give me? And that matters. And if the team is sort of like wishy-washy, and I'm not saying it's the wrong thing, but I'm just saying if a team says you're going to have to go through it like everybody else, if there's another team that says you'll have every opportunity to make the team right out of camp, he might go to that other team. And it just
Which I
that's the way it
think
goes.
Yeah, and I think with the Flyers, there is room to at least say that. I
Right.
don't know if it's realistic in the grand scheme, but I think you can say that and be
Yeah.
honest about it.
Yeah, and I think so too. I think that's a better way to try and get the player there. And then the player will also talk to their advisors. And trust me, they have this all worked out. The guy who showed me that they had this more worked out than anything I ever imagined was Quinn Hughes. Before that draft in Dallas, I interviewed Quinn Hughes and talked to him about other cities. And he goes, I have he may have said a spreadsheet. I don't remember now, and I know that would excite you greatly. But I remember he said he had it laid out already where he could go, what the cities were like, what he could do there outside of hockey, what everything he had it all for like all the possibilities of places he could go before he even got drafted.
Right. Right. Well, sounds like a good spreadsheet to me.
Uh huh.
All right. Our seeker said, build from the goal on out. You'll thank me later. And every time, every time, right? The problem is the Flyers have tried to do that and it's hit a lot of bumps in the road.
Yeah, no question. I mean, every team says that. Not every team achieves that. And we see that now. I mean, just go look around goalies in the league. There are goalies in the playoffs I don't like with teams that are at this point in the playoffs. And you've heard me say them, so I don't need
Hi,
to repeat them.
Edmonton.
Yeah. So, we know that that goes on. I would say, Joshua Ravensbergen, the Flyers, let's say that Colorado pick turns out to be 22. If he was still on the board, I'm drafting him. I don't care who I have.
100%.
I don't
I
care
might even
who's.
think about trading up to get him.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It really depends what you would have to give up to do it. And he may not be the best goalie right away in that draft, but he has all the tools you want of a future goalie. And so, he's a guy worth taking the risk on, I think.
Maria sent us an email saying, I listen to your podcast almost every day you're on. I have to admit, Russ gets on my nerves sometimes, but but you guys really put out great Flyers content. One question I have, what do you think about the Flyers trading for Bowen Byram? He doesn't seem to be a good fit for the Sabres. He's an RFA. What would be a reasonable asking price? And
So,
I want to say he recently made an agent change. So
yes,
it's definitely seeming clear that he wants out of Buffalo. So that is for sure, and I think he had a good season considering he got traded, last year, and then was his first full year in Buffalo this past season, 38 points, which not like, I think the best he can do,
it's
but
Buffalo.
considering in Buffalo, okay.
Yeah, and he stayed healthy, and I think that
Yeah,
used to be the other thing. I love Bo Byram, always have. I did have a conversation with a reporter in Buffalo today about that situation, about the contract and all that, because they were asking me, "Hey, who do you think if they were going to trade with the Flyers, that would be?" And I named two people, Cam York and Jamie Drysdale, and they might be more interested in Drysdale because he's a right-handed shot. Either one and a pick, and even if it's one of the seconds, done deal. Do it.
yeah, I like it. Yeah, I don't yeah,
Because you're
for me,
gaining
I
in
don't I
size,
think Cam York is too much, but I think Jamie Drysdale is reasonable.
I think either way, I would do it either way, and it's no slight to these guys, but you're gaining size, you're getting similar or better offense, like, you can't lose on that.
Yeah, and I think Byrom would be a much better fit for the Flyers. I
Yeah, I
think
think it's a
overall.
good fit. And so, yeah, it's a smart question.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Our last question of the day, Anthony on Instagram commented on our episode about next year's draft and was talking about flipping picks for the following year's draft and
Mhm.
saying, since the team moved down 2 spots, do you see the Flyers trading some or all of their picks for a pick in the 2026 draft? We have 3 first rounds. If you have a good feeling a team like the Sharks will be terrible again next year, you can get 2 high picks in next year's draft and try and get McKenna. We can't make any big free agent splashes and the talent pool is limited. So what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely would try and flip one of those picks for a team that may be desperate to get into the first round this year because their team says we need this guy now, and maybe it's Ravensburgen. Maybe you lose Ravensburgen to do it. But if that's the price that I'd have to pay to lose Ravensburgen to do it, I would do it to have a chance in the McKenna sweeps. So yeah, I would do that. If it's just uh, a second rounder to get another second rounder in next year's, I do it because it gives you more currency in next year's round to finagle your way. So yes, I definitely, we've talked about this. I think it should definitely be a strategy, and I would try and do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a no-brainer that if you can package the lower of the 2 second first rounders we have and one of the seconds into a first for
Yep,
next year, I
you do it.
like easy, easy. You just do it. And I don't know that McKenna is a realistic option for the Flyers. I just see them being in
No,
the
but there's
same
5 or 6 terrific guys.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's just an overall stronger draft, it's looking like. So, I think, like, that's kind of the realistic look you have to take at it and not try and shoot for being the worst team in the league to get that
Right. Right. I
top
mean,
pick, right?
look, I mean, you may improve the team on paper in the off season. You may do something to upgrade the goaltending, and you might still be in that same spot next year because everybody got better. And so if you're in that same spot next year with the same kind of chance, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
As long as some other
absolutely.
things are looking up, hey, that's how you could really get better.
Yep, I think so as well. All right, that will do it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more draft eligible centers, including a deep dive on Brady Martin. And we are also going to look at a depth round option with Bruno Ijan, who's a Croatian who plays forward for the Lincoln Stars in the USHL. A really intriguing depth
Interesting guy.
pick option. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got draft prospects or Flyers questions, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the all new Locked On NHL game night. It's every game, every night until that Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale with NHL game night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.